I talked to Jesus a lot when I first started my intuitive business. Just a ton. It was like he was sitting on my shoulder chatting away to me, and he became this huge guidance system. And when I'm saying talk, I don't mean like, oh, I just prayed or, oh, I just talked to the air. No, I mean, I talked. I clairvoyantly brought him in and had long conversations and really was able to get a lot of information and communicate a lot with him. And then eventually, what I started doing is astral projecting, and he would give me classes. We were kind of having these one-on-one coaching sessions where I would, where he would just guide me through different steps and teach me a whole bunch of different things. Now, I want to kind of do a caveat about what is astral projection. What is that, Kavena? So astral projection is when you take your spirit, you put it in your astral body, and then you consciously decide to go somewhere else other than, without your body. So you're moving your spirit around to different locations. It's different than dreaming, and it's different than lucid dreaming. You just have lucid dreaming, kind of things are happening around you. This, you're taking more of your spirit and moving it out there. And so that is basically what astral projection is. It's a lot of people do this. So a lot of times when people are having an out of body experience, they're astral projecting. They're just scared because they're out of their body and they see their body beneath them and they get scared and try to get back in. But when you know what you're doing and you know how to leave your body, it's you have enough training where it's actually can be really fun. And so when I first started the school, I already had trained, I knew how to do all this stuff. And so I started astral projecting, and Jesus would take me on all these really interesting training sessions. It started off where I would be on one end of the field and there would be this little bridge, and he would walk up and he would come on the other side of the field. And I would stand there and then he'd kind of wave me over. And I would cross this little tiny footbridge. And whatever season it was on my side of the field, it always became a different season on his side of the field. So if it was summer, it would become winter. If it was spring, it would become fall. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason, but it always would become something different. And then he and I would start walking down this path, and he would talk to me. And at that point, I was more clairvoyant, so I could see images more than I could actually hear words, but he was definitely teaching me. And and I would ask him questions telepathically, and he would do things like put his hand out and a bird would come and land in his hand, and he'd just kind of have this moment with it. And it was really sweet. And I'd be like, how do you do that? I want to do that. I want birds to just land in my hand. I don't want to look like Snow White and just have this stuff happening. And he's like, you have to ask. You don't force, you don't command, you don't just make it happen. He was like, ask. And it was so what that was about this total sovereignty and this total respect for all things living. And his energy was so high and so lovely. He would go, oh, birds, you're welcome to land in my hand. I would enjoy it or something like that. And the bird would be like, oh, yes, happy to land in your hand. So he would ask. And it was all about permission and this respect that all these things have free will, especially humans. We especially have free will. So we'd walk down this path, and then like a lion, I remember once this big lion came out and it was like growling and really ferocious, and even astral projecting, I was kind of like, ooh. And he asked it to calm down. I mean, it just like laid at his feet, started purring and being like a little kitten, and then he pet it. And I'm like, how do you do that? And he was like, I ask it to lay down. And then he soothed it. And so he started training me, and he started putting things in that path that I was afraid of, or something that would like somebody that looked like this, like murderous, crazy person. He would put that person on, and I'd be like, okay, this is supposed to scare me. And then he would have me ask or do, different psychic tools to get neutral and to manage that kind of energy. And so it was one thing after the next that he was having me practice doing, and he would just pick whatever was going on with me, he would pick. And then he would have me overcome it. And so, for example, like trusting him, he had me walk off a cliff. He's like, we came to the end of the path one day and he's like, just kept walking in the air. And I'm like, okay, and I tried having that much trust in him and I did it and I kept falling, and he's like, trust, come on, use this tool and that tool and this tool and that tool and have trust. And then I'd use this and that and the other psychic tools and raise my vibration so I had enough trust so that I could walk on air in the astral with him. And it was really cool. I mean, it was genuinely one of these just amazing experiences. And at the beginning, that connection, it was almost like they were launching me, God and Jesus were like launching me. So it was forming this really intense bond and filling me full of a lot of energy and making sure I had my safety net in place and my trust in them in place and then launching me. And I remember it was like for the first 2 months, he was practically sitting on my shoulder. I would go to the gym and I'd be walking on the treadmill and Jesus would pop in and be like, do you have questions? And I did because I was scared. I was scared to start teaching classes. I mean, this was a long time ago, by the way. I've been teaching for 13 or 14 years now. But back then I hadn't taught at all. So I was totally nervous. And I remember I had all these fears like, oh, these students are going to ask this kind of question or that kind of question. And I don't know the answers. I don't know everything. And so that was part of the lesson too. It's like, you don't need to know everything. You just ask us if you have a question. But before that, I was like, okay, so what if they ask me this? What if they ask this political thing? Or what if they ask, I have one of the questions I asked Jesus was like, all right, what if somebody asks me, Kavena, what is the meaning of life? And I'm like, what is it? I don't know. I don't know what the meaning of life is. What, I'm like sitting there on the treadmill. What is the meaning of life? Is it just to become enlightened? And Jesus grimaced. I was like, oh, I guess that's meant to be enlightenment. And so he showed me this image of this man in meditation with purple drawstring pants and this white flowy shirt. And he showed me the energy going up and then the energy being capped. And I'm like, okay. And then he showed me himself and he showed me the energy just kept going up, 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 and up. And then he showed me the energy of God. And he showed me that that energy just kept growing and going up and evolving and growing up and evolving and getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the point of life, the meaning of life is to grow. It's not to be miserable. It's not, having fun is a part of it, but so is growing. Growing is the whole point. I mean, that's what he told me was the meaning of life was to keep raising my frequency. And FYI, part of raising your frequency is learning how to step into more neutrality and joy and fun and all that kind of good stuff. But the truth is, we get to more neutrality by having challenges. So anyway, so that question became answered, and it's been really a pleasure to have that level of support system. And a lot of times when I talk about the clairvoyant program in particular being a spiritual program, I mean it. I mean, we're learning, the students are learning how to develop their own relationship with the divine, with God, with Jesus, with Buddha. They're learning how to connect on their own and they're learning how to get their own answers. And if there's someone, and not everyone is like this, but sometimes people have like woundings from different churches or whatever, sometimes they really get that healed by having their own relationship. Like I've had I have 3 or 4 students whose parents were preachers, and they were like rejecting everything that their parents said, and then they show up and then they take classes and they learn how to talk to Jesus and do miracle healings and do this, that, and the other, and they were like, oh wow, because they developed their own relationship with Jesus or with God or whatever. It was so personal and so specific to them that it became one of the biggest joys in their life. And I know it's unconventional. I know that. Like most people are supposed to get their answers from a book or are supposed to not get their own answers. But when you reach the level that you are getting your own answers, it makes the whole entire spiritual experience tactile and experiential and personal on a level that's truly hard to describe. And it's fun. It's also a lot of fun. But the amount of spiritual growth and benefit that I've gotten, that the students have gotten, has been such an incredible joy that I wouldn't trade it for anything. So when people are kind of, saying, oh, that's not how you're supposed to grow spiritually, I'm always kind of laugh because I'll have Jesus standing right next to me, laughing his butt off too, because it's just not true. Like, we're here to have connected experiences. And one of the ways we have connected experiences with God is by talking to God, by connecting with God. And if you couldn't have, I mean, if you could hear God, wouldn't you want to? If you could see God, wouldn't you want to? If you could have those level, that kind of tactile experience, why wouldn't you? I mean, I was like, people, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm really excited to be able to offer this work and to do this work and to watch my babies, my students, my Claires grow into that level of connection. And that ramping up in that support system is also something that I noticed happens with teachers. So one of my students, when she moved into teaching herself, she also started going down the path with Jesus. And she also started going to certain places that I would go to for healings and connection. And she had that same kind of launching process happen to her. So it's sort of like you up level and then you get this whole kind of dynamic support system that's there to really support you and helping people get to that more connected state with the divine. So anyway, so that's some of what we're doing over here. I'm not joking when I say you get to grow spiritually, or you're growing spiritually in a way that is totally profound and different from probably anything else I can think of. So anyway, that's what we're doing over here. I'm Kawena Charlot. I'm the director of the Intuitive Path Academy. I teach all things psychic. I have 8-week classes. I have a 2-year program, and a whole lot of other stuff going on here. I also do readings and healings if that's something that you're wanting to do, is one-on-one work. If you want more of this content, feel free to like, to subscribe, to ring bells, to do whatever you need to do. And thank you so much for watching the whole video. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.